Hi, and welcome to the Financial Fox, finance, investment, and crypto with a twist. I'm your host, Steffi B. I'm the founder of PR company Cassiopeia Services, and every week I bring to you my favorite conversation with investment experts, market disruptors, mover and shakers, and the coolest project in crypto. Today, I have decided to focus on CBDCs, stablecoins, particularly after, what is happening with the US government hearings. They're becoming more engaging and understanding of the space, which is great. So we are going to talk about the implication of stablecoins, CBDCs to the future of finance. And I reach out to Charles Dhaussy. He's Asia Managing Director at ConsenSys. He's an expert on the subject, obviously, and he leads ConsenSys project on central bank digital currency with Hong Kong Monetary Authority and Bank of Thailand. So this is going to be a deep dive into stablecoin and CBDCs. And if you're new to the space, don't worry, because we always try to keep things very easy so everybody can understand and learn, which is the main things. So let's get into it. Hi, Charles, how are you?
Doing fantastic. Thank you, Stefania, for having me today.
Okay, fantastic. So can you maybe update us on what ConsenSys is doing in the region and what you are mainly excited about in the CBDCs, stablecoin and DeFi space?
Absolutely. Maybe a few words about ConsenSys first. ConsenSys is one of the world's largest blockchain engineering company. We are hundreds of engineers spread all over the world. We've been working very intensively on the Ethereum stack. So we are very much a specialist of the Ethereum ecosystem in general. And we are the company behind MetaMask, for example, which I'm sure many of the viewers today are using. We are helping developers with development tools. We are also a big security arm for cybersecurity in the world of finance and DeFi in general. And 2021 has been a great year for us. We've been working with multiple central banks around CBDCs, very large projects, also an infrastructure built around the world of carbon credits, which is a new kind of digital asset. It's very interesting to see how these new assets are moving to new infrastructures. And we've been celebrating many milestones in terms of more users and additional developers building with ConsenSys products. A few weeks ago, we celebrated a new fundraising for ConsenSys. We rose $200 million to help financing the growth of the company. And in 2022, the company will be hiring more than 400 people all over the world. So if you're looking at a new career for 2022, I really invite everyone to have a look at the career page at ConsenSys. We are hiring engineers, product people, and many other positions. So it's a great journey. It's really exciting. At ConsenSys, we are really building for the past 6 years the third generation of internet, what we call the Web3, and being pioneers with many others is just very fulfilling and energizing.
Maybe let's start talking about the recent public hearings about digital assets and the future of finance, which had really a more positive and constructive interaction with the US government compared to the past, and was really a fundamental tone shift. What has been your reaction to the hearings?
I think it's great to have these conversations running. I think it's great to have a fairly good representation of the industry in general, but I think we want to keep this kind of conversation really open to many different players, making sure the conversations are inclusive of many different actors. Not only the centralized digital asset player, but as well as the decentralized digital asset players. I think it's important to have representation from the NFT industry, the gaming industry in general, because this revolution of Web3 and blockchain is really impacting a lot of industries, is offering a very clear and bright futures for many of these industries and startups. So it's important that this hearings with regulators in general include as many representatives from the industry of digital assets in general.
Why do you think a shift in the tone is happening? Is that because of money flow? So what I'm trying to say is that basically the US Congress start to recognize that crypto is a new industry. The DeFi is bringing lots of capital, and is really because of the money that they are start to become more engaging and try to understand, just to not lose out, basically.
If you look carefully, you realize that every single country and regulators today are working on blockchain technology for CBDCs, for infrastructure and digital asset in general. So this space is getting much more mature and is getting really embraced by regulators and the financial industry in general. So when you bring this kind of large players, institutional players, when you start to put your currency as a CBDC on blockchain as well, it's calling for regulations. And I think these regulations are covering many of the existing blockchain ecosystem, including DeFi. So it's true that the DeFi ecosystem has been growing very, very, very rapidly, and there is a lot of assets over there now. And regulations probably will help also to get this space a little bit safer and more inclusive to new adopters. So I guess the right conversations, designing the right regulations will be a very positive for the ecosystem in general.
So if we are talking about regulation, I mean, the financial markets are already heavily regulated, and DeFi is not regulated enough. So the question is, do you think that we need a complete new regulatory system in place, or you can fill the gaps adopting the current regulation in traditional financial markets?
It really depends on which topic. So regulations are covering many activities and are coming in many different modules, right? So if you look at the way identity is defined on the current regulations and market, I think there is good fundamentals over there. Probably there is a need for further study and possibly upgrade, because our identity is being expressed in digital systems and digital networks in different ways. But I think being able to identify people is something which is necessary in finance to protect the flows in general. But there is also a need for privacy. So there is always this kind of tension between the need of better infrastructure to be able to craft and make sure any environment is safe to be used by as many users as possible, but there is also a need for privacy. So these regulations needs to be updated probably, but they should not be sent away or anything like this. These regulations are proven, they exist for a long time. There is just for those regulations the need to be put in context of the new way the internet, the new way our digital societies are being organized, and it's a process which will take time. And again, if the dialogue is maintained and if the right people are invited to these conversations, we've seen regulators being very proactive and willing to keep the space innovative and making sure it can go in a safe way. So all these conversations are very positive.
Okay, so we are having also some crypto hearings on stablecoin next Tuesday. What are you expecting from that?
I'm not a legal expert, but yes, the conversation will keep progressing. I think the stablecoin are an important part of the new finance. They will be leaving aside CBDCs from central banks. We've seen the volume of stablecoin growing over the years. I think we're close to $100 billion US of stablecoin being issued. And when you look carefully at the market, this different stablecoin comes with different flavors and different risk profile. So I think having a fresh look at this industry and defining rules so it can be growing faster and stronger and in a more safe way will certainly be positive.
Fantastic. So I think is a good point to maybe make some clarification. Could you maybe define the term stablecoin and CBDCs so we draw a clear line on what is what, and that will also help how things should get regulated?
Absolutely. So let's start with CBDCs. CBDCs stand for central bank digital currency. So essentially, it's a US dollar or euro or a Chinese yuan, which is issued by the central bank, the same way your paper note is issued by the central bank. But these CBDCs will be living on blockchain systems. And they have exactly the same security aspects and the same guarantees. They have a legal tender with the central banks of their respective countries. And they're coming in a new form on blockchain. You can compare them to stablecoins. So stablecoins are essentially the same currencies, but this time the issuer of this currency sitting on blockchain systems will not be the central bank, but will be commercial banks or private entities. So you don't have exactly the same level of guarantee. Some of these stablecoins are backed one-to-one with their equivalent in fiat. Some of these stablecoins will be backed by crypto assets. Some other stablecoins will be backed by a basket of financial instruments. So I think it's important for everyone interacting with such stable coins to understand the difference and understanding the potential risk, so that they can be well educated and make their decision accordingly. So
will CBDCs and stablecoin coexist in the future?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
What we will see probably coming in the coming years is many different branded money. So you will have the original currency from your central banks, for example, the euro, but you will probably see, if the regulations allow that, some euro or US dollar which will be issued by private entities. So it could be a social network, it could be an IT company, it could be a conglomerate in your country, and this branded money will be following probably some regulations from the central banks, and they will probably be optimized for certain use. So you could easily imagine to have a branded US dollar in the world of capital market, which will be sitting on a blockchain. It will be highly efficient for capital market activities. And maybe thinking of maybe a euro or US dollar, which will be optimized for e-commerce and will be really easy to interact with the e-commerce.
Okay.
So you can imagine that in your digital wallets, you might have maybe 3 different kind of euros. They will all be €1 each, but some euros will be coming from the central banks, and some of your euros will be coming from an e-commerce giant, and maybe another one coming from a social network you're part of.
Okay, so I would like to break down on the CBDCs a little bit more. So what are the implications for individuals? I mean, some people have been saying, oh, there might be a new tool for government surveillance, so they don't like the concept of CBDCs because it's killing like your freedom to hold money. But in another way, programmable money is actually a good thing. So in your views, what are the implications for people? And then we can talk more about financial institutions.
Sure. So I think CBDCs will be coming in a few years. First, for retail, don't expect the CBDCs in 2022 in your wallet. It's a market which is slowly growing, and you will see CBDCs in the professional world or institutional world before that.
We can still use cash until then.
Absolutely, and probably you will still be using cash. If you think of your journey and your experience with money, today, if you want to go to a coffee and sit at a terrace and get a cup of coffee, and you decide to pay with a check for your cup of coffee, you can, but probably the shop owner will not be very excited because you're not using the right money at the right place. So if you look at the history of money has been reinventing itself multiple times. We used to pay cash. Some people are paying with digital wallet on the mobile phone. Some others are using credit card. So there is multiple ways to pay. And if you want to keep using a specific money systems versus another one, you will still have this freedom. So I don't see cash disappearing overnight, but I see digital currencies issued by government to be great products, which will basically be much more practical to use for all the users. There is a great question, which is a question of privacy. I think it's a fair question. It's a question which is important to put in the context of your existing privacy situation. When you pay with your credit card, when you pay with different digital systems, there is already some kind of history you are building about your payment. So potentially people could also be aware of what you're doing exactly with your payment. So it's important not to reject the CBDCs too quickly, but give it the time, give feedback to your regulators and your governments to explain that yes, a smarter way of money which can be programmable, money which can be composable, is meaningful to you. It will bring better services, better money experience in general, but also mention to them that privacy is something important, and it should be included into the design of these new digital currencies. But they are definitely coming, and I think everyone involved in this new definition of money is really all ears to hear feedback from users and polish the product so it became a great experience for everyone.
Talking about the opportunity CBDCs are unlocking for the financial system, can you maybe expand on that and also give me your view if you think they could represent actually a threat to stablecoin and the current DeFi landscape?
So CBDCs will compete in some ways with stablecoins, or maybe stablecoins will compete with CBDCs. I think at the end of the day, they want to be similar, right? But they're not coming. They don't have the same pedigree. As I explained earlier, CBDCs are issued by your central bank the same way your money is coming from the central bank today, and stablecoin will be issued by private entities. So yes, there will be a little bit of competition between these two types of currencies, and I think it's great. It's going to help currencies issued by governments to be better products which will be more embedded into our everyday life. So competition is always a positive thing on the market. So I really look forward to this new experience we will have with our money and wallets.
I mean, definitely the advantages of settlement, that's really a big thing. So maybe picking up on that and expanding a bit more on the big experiment that China is doing, and that maybe would be your main area of expertise. They are leading the space with the digital yuan, and which is going to be a rollout to a population of over 1 billion of peoples in 2022. Can you maybe comment on the progress done by China and also on the benefit of the digital yuan for international trade, especially in the Asia region? Absolutely.
So I'm based here in Hong Kong, part of Greater China. So the journey of the CBDC in China started in 2016. And over the years, they've been really thinking and redesigning a new digital currency for China. Today, there has been about 12 experiments in 12 different cities all over China. About 50 million digital yuan wallets have been created as a kind of a tasting phase. And we expect the digital yuan to be really fully rolled out, starting with the Olympic Games in a few weeks in Beijing. For the moment, the digital yuan is exclusively for the domestic market. So you use the digital yuan only for transactions in China. We at ConsenSys have been working very closely on cross-border CBDC together with the Central Bank of Hong Kong, Central Banks of China, Central Banks of Dubai, as well as Central Banks of Thailand. And we built with the ConsenSys technology for these 4 central banks a multiple CBDC cross-border payment bridge, which will enable all these CBDCs to be essentially used for cross-border payments. So very, very strong progress of the Chinese yuan in its digital format for the domestic market. We still have to wait a little bit more before seeing the digital yuan for the international expansion, but it will be very interesting to see how this technology will evolve, and also how the digital yuan will be interacting into the existing global banking system.
Obviously, other countries like the US, Europe are also catching up. When do you think we can see some kind of form of experiment taking place?
So the retail CBDC, definitely in China. I think it's happening for the first time at a very large scale. In terms of wholesale CBDCs, probably within the next 12 to 18 months, you will start to see more experiments going in production or pilot phase. But there is definitely a lot of actions. We at ConsenSys have been working with the central banks of Australia, Singapore, Thailand, Hong Kong, Bank of Korea, Bank of China, Bank of the UAE. So there is here in Asia a lot of activity. There is activity all over the world. But I think the stablecoin will probably go into production before. Usually the private sector is a little bit more agile and fast, but CBDC will follow very shortly.
So Asia is basically leading the space. What about the US and Europe and the UK?
So there is also a lot of activity in Europe and the US. I think the regulators have been very active. We've seen a lot of experiments from Banque de France, from Bank of England, and many other central banks in general all over Europe. In the US, the stablecoin have been progressing faster than the CBDC so far. But this kind of conversations and topics are very strategic for countries. And from time to time, the progress is not always visible to the public. So I would expect a lot of activity in 2022, and probably some of the background work, which has been done very discreetly for some months, will suddenly surface, and we will realize that it's definitely there is a lot of progress, and countries are getting much more into concrete actions, pilots, and not only experimenting anymore.
So being programmable money, another thing that CBDCs can also facilitate is really the automation of collection and distribution of taxes, isn't it?
Yeah, so if you look carefully at money as a product and as a competition coming in the space of stablecoin and CBDCs, in terms of features, a stablecoin or a CBDC cannot be only faster money. It's not a feature which is strong enough to trigger a migration to this new type of infrastructure. So the stablecoin will probably be issued by private companies, and they will be optimized money for specific use case. We talked earlier about capital market, maybe e-commerce, or maybe social network activities, and payment and currencies, which will be optimized for that. If you look at CBDCs, they can also be optimized for different countries and regions, but they also need to find their own features so that the market will essentially migrate from the old electronic money to this new CBDCs. So if CBDCs or stablecoin as products are not well thought enough in terms of features, they might have a mitigate success. So if you look at the features CBDCs could potentially implement, there will be for example the automatic calculation of VAT, which can be very interesting features for small and medium enterprises, which can potentially save a lot of accounting fees and hours of admin reconciliation, having payments made by their customers, and automatically the VAT being calculated and the VAT being sent for example, to the tax department. So of course it comes with many questions around that, but there is features which can be very interesting. And if the right features are designed into CBDCs and stablecoin, essentially the market will naturally prefer them and migrate to these kind of solutions. And you can imagine that some people will tell you, if you pay with certain currencies, you will get maybe a discount, or you will get favorable terms. The same way today, if you want to pay with a paper check, some people might charge you fees to process the paper check. So you can imagine in the future, some people will tell you, if you want to pay with cash, I will need to process this cash, and there will be a fees for paying with cash. It's not happening today, but in the history of money, the old format of money at some point become expensive to maintain, and usually the operators will need to charge fees, and that's the way we all progress to a more modern infrastructure for payment.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, last question. We talked about stablecoin earlier on, and regulation is coming. So obviously, you said the regulation actually have to touch different kind of aspect of stablecoin. Is not. It could be, stablecoin operation, payment, storage, insurance. So it's not so simple as it is. But when you are expecting a regulation for stablecoin to kick in?
There is already regulation to a certain extent, but not for all the aspects of the stablecoin. So you will have regulations around AML, for example, which are already in place, not necessarily for all the stablecoins, not necessarily in every country, but there is, for example, in the US, the first bricks of regulations around the concept of stablecoin, which have been clearly laid down for operators. So you will find a set of regulations which will come step by step, probably not every region at the same time. I think the regulators are trying to work also in sync to make sure that regulations will be applied everywhere. Regulations from the FATF, I think, are important to follow. You can see that there is a lot of work made at the BIS as well in terms of research and guidance for the global regulators. So I don't think there will be suddenly regulations for stablecoin all over the place. We will see regulations happening on different markets from different regulators, and eventually getting probably very similar regulations all over the world. There could not be too many differences.
Fantastic. Anybody that would like to follow you? Do you maybe want to tell where people should go, social media, website?
Absolutely. I think your journey starts with ConsenSys.net. If you have not experienced the Web3, I suggest you have a look at MetaMask. And if you want to follow me on social media, you'll find me on Twitter and LinkedIn at Charles Dhaussy. I'm sure my name will pop up around.
Okay, Charles, thank you so much. And I look forward to have you back on the show when we see, more progress with ConsenSys and more things that we can discuss in DeFi.
Thank you so much for having me. Quality conversation here. Thank you.
All right, that was my conversation with Charles. I hope you find it useful. And if you have any question, please don't hesitate to contact me at Steffy at financialfox.news or hit me on social media and ask me anything that you need. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel and podcast, please click the subscribe button and follow us on social media to stay up to date with our news and interviews. And if you have some time, please review our podcast on Apple Podcasts, and it will help other people to find the show. And until next time, have fun and enjoy your weekend.